as we march forward to liberate America through democracy and transparency. State of things in North Carolina. Timely topic. Lynn Bernstein, election security advocate, aerospace engineer, and founder of Transparent Elections NC, will be talking about what's going on in North Carolina.
First, I want to start by thanking everyone who made this happen. It's been fabulous, and I've learned a lot. Got my contact information here. I post a lot on Twitter of what's going on in North Carolina in case you want to follow that. That topic keeps coming up, so apparently our state's very interesting right now. I've not always been an advocate. Like Bob said, I started out as an engineer, and somebody mentioned 3 years ago to me that our election systems weren't very secure. And my response was, I'm sure people are testing these. And so I went ahead and read some books, and I took Alex Halderman's class online, Securing Digital Democracy, and Jonathan Simon. I don't think he's here today, but I read his book and haven't slept pretty much well since I've read that book. Pretty much once I saw what was going on, I realized I had to fix it. One of the pictures, the top picture here is from Bladen County, District 9. Last year there was a hearing because there wasn't a chain of custody of ballots. There was a whole, I'm sure that was in the national news. So the Board of Elections investigator went down to Bladen County and to go check out the ballot room. And when they got there, they realized that the ballot room was housed in a public building that also housed the VA, so people had access to the building. And unfortunately, what they found was directly across from the ballot room was a keychain on the wall labeled ballot room. So they took a picture of it and left, and then they came back a couple days later, and they took the picture on the bottom with the key in the door open, and nobody was around. So clearly, North Carolina, we have a lot of work to do there. So, has North Carolina gone rogue? It's interesting that Chris Vickery mentioned that somebody at the state board actually described themselves as going rogue, because I would agree there is so much voter suppression and lawlessness right now that it's hard to see how we can come back around. There are some apparent things that are going on, like purging of voter rolls, gerrymandering, new voter ID laws. They're limiting voting sites and early voting hours, obviously chain of custody. One of the things that also happened in Bladen County was that somebody went ahead and printed the early voting tape right after early voting ended, and they didn't wait till election day. And partly I think, why did somebody not program that to not print before election day? It just doesn't make sense to me. There are a lot of non-apparent things that aren't in the news. Like John was saying, some of our counties, they use DREs for early voting and hand-marked paper, which is the more secure method for day of voting. It kind of makes you wonder if there's a reason that they're doing that. The express vote, the barcodes are not legal in our state. They have to allow us to verify our vote before casting it. Right now, they're pretty much willfully ignoring the certification requirements for what they just certified. There's no transparency. We're not getting any records requests that we're asking for, no accountability. And there's a very poor transfer of institutional knowledge, which has been pretty critical since our state board has been in complete chaos for quite some time. Since March of 2018, we went from a 9-member board to a 5-member board. For a short time, we had no board that was constitutionally seated. We got a new elections director, executive director, and after only 2 weeks on the job, she went ahead and attempted to certify these machines essentially told the board, yep, everything passed, we're good. The new chair had only been on the job for 15 days before he voted to certify these machines. There was some other stuff that happened in between. One of the things that North Carolina is allowed to do, they're allowed to change their certification requirements in case they find things, essentially security flaws. They decided not to do that, and we thought we were actually going to get hand-marked paper when the previous chair told a joke and was fired for it. He decided that was a good idea to tell a joke at a statewide Board of Elections conference to about 800 people, the majority of women, and the joke involved a cow and sex and equating cows to women. It was pretty horrific, and he was gone after 24 hours. So now we have a new chair, and he pretty much has ignored all the evidence that says we should be using hand-marked paper. So at that meeting where they went ahead and certified in August, I'll give you some reasons that they gave for certifying. So the secretary, Stella Anderson, she voted to not certify express vote. She said that everything they got said hand-marked paper ballots, cybersecurity experts warned against using express vote, and she said it was like talking to a bunch of climate science deniers. They just simply ignored all of the evidence that they were given. Jeff Carmen, he equated what was going on, that his grandfather had finally been given the right to vote, and he was concerned that barcodes wouldn't reflect voter intent. David Black, he's a Republican on the board, he said that if people wanted to use hand-marked paper, then they should just use an absentee ballot. This is right after the Bladen County fraud, and clearly no chain of custody. And then Kenneth Raymond said something I think that was quite offensive. He said, the people in the audience who were complaining about barcodes are probably the same people that use barcodes at a grocery store. The chair said other states are using it, counties want them, and he had full confidence in their security, yet he couldn't cite a single cybersecurity expert who would vouch for that. So why are they ignoring the science? Well, right now we have 6 PSNS lobbyists in our state who, rumor has it, they went ahead and tried to get the legislature to increase the bond. We have a surety bond that vendors have to pay, increase it from 10 million to 17 million, maybe in a possible attempt to drive out any competition. Print Elect, it's the state's one and only PSNS vendor. They give money to the governor and to other legislators. There's cozy relationships, favor banks. I do think that some reporter could have a field day investigating this and reporting it. The other problem that's going on right now in North Carolina is there's so much disinformation going on. The county board of elections officials, they told me the following that they believe. Hand-marked paper ballots are more expensive, adjudication is a huge problem, everything's air-gapped, it's not connected to the internet, we do logic and accuracy tests so we know it will work, and we audit. I wrote letters, I've given public comment, I try to be civil. At the Guilford County meeting, you can see me here holding up a sign that says, "No, not true." I decided that I had enough of boards looking out and simply lying to people. And so I told them ahead of time I was going to hold up the sign. And so that's what I did. And the people in the audience, voters who came, every time I held it up, they would scream, "She says it's not true, she says it's not true." That was one of the reasons why that meeting was essentially shut down. What you don't see in this picture is that my knees are shaking to the point where I thought I was going to fall over. And John went ahead and came and stood next to me to show that he supported me. So if you see people doing stuff like this, you need to go stand next to them, because chances are, even though they look confident, they're probably scared out of their minds. I mean, the board was yelling at me to sit down at this point, so I did not. North Carolina has some of the best requirements for our elections, our systems. We have to do there's a federal evaluation. We're supposed to be certifying only things that are of the latest PVSG standards. There's an independent functional testing, and there's a state evaluation that has a source code review and then a bunch of security reviews. The stuff in red, it was not done. It just flat out wasn't done. And the state board knows it, and they have chosen to do nothing about it. We've called them on it, and they're just being lawless at this point. We also have a certification program that has some additional requirements. It says it has to be EEC certified. Our previous equipment that was certified never was EEC certified. And so something else that's happening right now is that we found out that the systems that North Carolina is about to receive, that we kept questioning the board and asking them why they're buying something, the Express Vote, that ran on Windows 7. Turns out, Express Vote that we're getting is considered end of life, and it actually runs on Windows CE 6. But they never intended for us to use that. What they are intending to do is to use administrative authority to modify that system and just swap it out with a different system that would require all that certification that they don't plan on doing. They plan on just doing it via an administrative signing of a pen. So that is something that we are going to hold firm on. We are not going to let them do that. Jerry Odom, he's from Forsyth County. He sent me a video on YouTube that showed the Express Vote side panel. One of the things that it shows here, you'll see that it's hard to see, but there are 2 USB ports. The stick that's in there has the ballot definitions, but then you also notice that there's a power button. So an election worker in the morning, a poll worker, has to open that panel to turn on the power. And I brought this to the attention of the board, and they said, well, we'll just put some tamper-evident tape on it. Now my question for ESNS is this a design flaw or is this a feature? Because I'm an engineer, and you don't do this on accident. That is a feature. Why? There is some good news. Starting December 1st, 2019, DREs are no longer allowed to be used in North Carolina. And right now, right now, North Carolina has 2/3 of the state. It currently does have hand-marked paper ballots. So that's at least something we have going for us. We did go from 1/3 of the counties using DREs. Right now, counties are starting to decide what systems they're going to use. Guilford County, the one where you saw me holding up the sign, John was there a lot, doing a lot of work as well. They went ahead and voted to use an auto mark for ADA compliance and hand-marked paper ballots for the rest of the county. So making a little headway. And then Forsyth County also, they voted for Express Vote for ADA. I'm not sure how that's going to work out for them, considering Maryland is mired in a lawsuit at this point. But they are doing hand-marked paper ballots for the rest of their voters. So we'll see how that goes. So I will take it as a win, even though we're struggling to get public records requests and anything else. So I think the reason why we ended up getting Guilford and Forsyth to go the way we wanted, because there was a lot of activism that happened, not just over the last 3 years, but within the last 2 or 3 months. John Brady from Audit USA, he came in, and essentially what he did was he found me, he found Chester Jones in Greensboro, he found Jerry Odom, he found people who were already doing the work and just really helped prop us up and give us good advice on how to move forward, things we should be doing, things we shouldn't be doing, and really, really just kind of, without John, I don't think we would have gotten to either of those 2 counties. I think everyone would have gone all Express Vote. So,
hey, John.
Since I'm not an advocate by trade, Susan Pinchon walked me through a lot of stuff online. So one of the things that John did was he brought advocates together. He drove around the state. He took me with him on a couple of those trips, just walking into elections directors' offices and saying, hey, we want to talk to you. And I didn't realize that I could do that, right? I kept trying to call and make appointments, and no one talked to me, and John said, no, just go. So I learned a lot. So we went to county demos and really peppered the vendors with questions, especially in front of the county board members so that they knew what was going on. Helped rally students, trained the priest is back there. He was with the camera the whole time filming stuff so that we could get that out. And there are a couple other people Chris Teleska, he's been working in North Carolina since 2003. He has so much knowledge, but one of the things with Chris and I that we're finding is that they won't answer any of his public records requests either. They will really give us nothing. Marilyn Marks has been trying to help out in the last couple of weeks, but she's neck deep in Georgia right now. Even though she lives in North Carolina, she's got to stay and finish what she started in Georgia. And then Dr. Spearman, he is on the board of Guilford County, and he really did his due diligence, learning about what he was going to be voting on. And it was pretty clear at some of the meetings that the other board members were not, they were just following the vendor propaganda, essentially. So Dr. Spearman he wouldn't give up. He kept pushing, and he ended up getting what he wanted for his county. So that was really great. So what can we do moving forward? One of the things for short-term goals is we have to get public records requests filled. Now, at this point, I think we're down to legal avenues. Unfortunately, they're just not going to give them to us. The state board needs to resend the certification and complete the steps that weren't done. There's still a few counties that haven't decided, so we can still reach out to those counties, reach out to county commissioners because they have to sign the check, and the cost of these ballot marking devices they're unnecessary. And so I think with North Carolina, we're not a state with a lot of money. So I think, even doing op-eds and informing voters of what a waste of money these things are will be really helpful. The other thing that I'm really pushing back on right now is the version that the state has told counties that they're allowed to purchase is a system that has DS200s with wireless modems installed. So back in 2018 was the first election where we didn't send our election results via modem anymore. So I called my local Board of Elections director and said, I just want to make sure there are no modems installed in these. And he talked all around it. Well, they're not functional, they won't be used. And I just kept pressing him, are they in there? Is it in there? Open the hood and look. And he said he would not look. And so I asked him for the paperwork, at least then I could check myself, and he will not give me the paperwork either. I've asked to go look and observe the logic and accuracy test. He told me, sure, no problem, I'll let you know when it is. It was 2 weeks ago, I just found out. They will not, the lack of transparency is really, I think, one of the things that brings voter confidence way, way down. And so I did start an organization, and I'm kind of in the process of starting it. It's Transparent Elections NC, because I really believe that when voters use a system that they understand, like hand-marked paper ballots, and they see the process, like Virginia was saying, they have more confidence. When a voter touches a computer screen and gets something with a barcode, that does not instill a whole lot of confidence. And then so long-term goals, what we can do, we really need to improve our post-election tabulation audits. It will require new legislation because right now, North Carolina, we audit one race on the ballot. It's always the top race on the ballot. So you essentially tell everyone what races you're not auditing. And they do a batch audit of 2 precincts per county. So it doesn't matter if you're Mecklenburg, if you're a big county, or if you're Forsyth County and you're a smaller county. It doesn't matter. They just batch audit two of those with the one race. So even though our state board says, oh no, we have great audits, they really don't. So I think they're willing to move on that a bit. So I'm hoping that we can at least find some common ground. Obviously, we need to improve chain of custody, physical security, and then supply chain regulations. That's something that's come up at a federal level, but I think we need to keep pushing that. I think everyone needs to keep pushing that because I think that is a huge problem when, our U.S. Navy, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, they vet everything, but there were chips in some of their secret equipment, top secret equipment, and what they thought were just benign chips ended up being transponders made in China. So we really need to figure out what is in those machines, where did they come from, who made them. This system the system that the state board wants to just sign off on, they cannot just get a fast pass, an administrative fast pass. they need to go through the steps. As much as I don't want North Carolina using express votes with CE6, I think it was pretty disingenuous for them to pretend like they were going to use those when they really knew they were just going to swap it out with this other one. And it took us months to find out it was CE6. We had to talk to people in other states whose states had been told it was at end of life and they would not receive those units, but yet North Carolina, here we are buying those. So what I would say is, we're gonna keep fighting. I'm really looking forward to hearing the rest of the speakers today because I think I'm gonna learn a lot about how to improve our advocacy work to get what we want in North Carolina. And I'm gonna leave you guys with a quote that is my favorite quote. It's from John Lewis, who I'm sure most of you know. He's done so much for voting rights in our country. He's been beaten, he's been arrested. And so what he says is, you must find a way to get in the way and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. You have a moral obligation and a mission and a mandate to go out and seek justice for all. You can do it, you must do it. So what I would say is, we all need to go out and make some good trouble.
Wow, what rocket scientists can do. When I went to North Carolina the first time, I didn't meet her until the day after I got home. I knew there was a meeting, and I heard this little lady, and I go, I gotta get to know her. And since then, every time I go to North Carolina, the Bernsteins host me, and they're wonderful. And she picks my brain, the fastest lawyer I've ever met, who's only been down the rabbit hole for a couple of years. Lynn, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is that hooking up with the NAACP was a blessing. Okay? Because they are scared of them, because they're pros. We picked Guilford County because what about us? Because that's Greensboro. We're 60 years before this happened that we flipped that county. And we're making a movie about what we did down there. It's incredible, the story of the lying, the deception, and we have it all on tape. Even the cow joke, how bad that thing was. And then how this barcode, how they think, well, they use it in stores, so it must be okay. But the thing that got me the most was Dr. Spearman, that before we did, he took me down to Florida. He said, I want you to be my wingman. I'm going to do 2 forums. And he stood up and he told a story. Because he said, I sit on this board of elections and there's nobody there. And we have to make decisions. And then somebody will come back and say, hey, Dr. Spearman, how could you make that decision? You know what he said? Because you were not here getting me informed beforehand. That's what we did in Guilford. We got that board informed, okay? And that's what we have to do all over, okay? Because the people who are leading this thing is greedy vendors. There's a monopoly going on in North Carolina, South Carolina, okay, part of Virginia, the same firm for 107 years, been a printer down there, okay? It's the good old boys. I want you to know, the first document I went after him, you know who I gave it to? Him. Because that's the way I do. And you know what? To find courageous people like her and teach people how to be courageous is so important. And the vulnerability that you feel when you're pushing the envelope, you do need to walk up and hold her hand and say, hey, go for it. But watch out for the adrenaline. You get carried away. You help people do this. And that's why I'm for forming small Margaret Reed type activist groups, okay, that we are here working together to make things happen, and there's ways of doing it, and that's why it's so important what we did in North Carolina, and that's why it's important that we find the funding, because she has 2 beautiful little girls. She's got a husband who works really hard, okay, who's really just an incredible guy too. He's a scientist. And it was just a great pleasure, and thank you again. It was a great experience. I will be back in North Carolina.
I'm not from there. I moved there 4 years ago, and it has been eye-opening. I've never lived in a place where there is so much racism. I mean, I'll give you an example. I looked at, I went ahead and watched the video that Train took of the Guilford County Board of Elections. And Dr. Spearman, he's president of North Carolina NAACP, and he was up there, and the other board members were being outwardly disrespectful to him. I mean, to the point where I felt sick. I went ahead and drove down there for the next meeting where I was holding the sign, and I essentially said to the board, you guys are disrespecting your colleague. He at least did his homework and you didn't, and so I'm gonna hold up this sign every time you say something that's not true. But it's been eye-opening because I feel like I'm kind of at a place now where I've been put in a place where I can make some real meaningful change. You know, Boulder, Colorado, love Boulder, Colorado, they're already there, right? So, yeah, so are there any other questions about, you know, what's going on in North Carolina or